Champions of the last major, Astralis have ruled the scene for much of 2017. Finishing in the top 4 of 7 events, denied the wins, which would have defined an era, by FaZe and SK. The major would be the perfect time for the return of the world-beating Astralis. Tactics rule the roost when they are on the server. Welcome on stage, Astralis.
Pleasantries exchanged between the two teams. The last time they're going to be nice to each other, that's for sure, at least for the next few hours, as they head off to their booths to get ready for map number 1. We don't even know the map just yet. Of course, map vetoes to come still, and plenty still to discuss of the two teams. We've spoken at length about SK's lineup. Let's finish off on Astralis Yanko as well. Playing with the camera, we love that as well. I mean, they are the reigning champions. They've had a reasonable season by their standards, it has to be said, up to this point over the last 6 months, but it hasn't been the outstanding kind of era-defining season that we would have liked to see them go on, that we've seen other teams do in the past. Fnatic spring to mind, NIP spring to mind. Even Virtus Pride had a good run after they won the major. So it hasn't been the same kind of dominant force that we were expecting.
Yeah, unfortunately for Astralis, I mean, they're a team that had top 4 placing at every single tournament, but they would have definitely liked a couple of more titles in the previous months. They have this rule where they only play 1 LAN tournament a month, so we didn't see them at every single tournament. They didn't qualify for Pro League finals, for example, either. But yeah, you feel that in Kiev, that grand final against FaZe beating them there, that kind of denied them that era. Basically, and then the rivalry that they had, and getting beaten again by FaZe in Sydney, then at ECS finals by SK. So I think for Astralis, it's a matter of, okay, this is all worth it if we can pay them back at the major.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, because that's the thing, is if they win a second major in the end, that's what SK did last year, obviously as Luminosity and SK. 2 majors in a year suddenly makes it your year, doesn't it?
I think it does. I mean, right now, we have so many big tournaments in terms of prize money as well, and you know, with all the top teams attending, so still the major is a major, and by winning that you kind of clinch the year as yours.
Yeah, you agree with that?
Yeah, we look at the majors as the most prestigious, right? And that's definitely what you want to do, is win as many of them as possible.
Yep.
So
do you think they're also very happy that FaZe are out as well, having been their bogey team over the last few months?
Yeah, I was having some discussions with players. Like, this is when G2 was still in the tournament. I was like, yeah, FaZe is out now. Like, they're like, yeah, that sucks because Kyo, the Frenchman, all the friendships and all this. But you know, if we had to play them, you know, we'd better not to.
Yeah.
So they were happy. They're happy that they're definitely happy when your opponents get knocked out, right?
Yeah.
That has to be something you look at.
Because there is always 1 or 2 teams that you find it difficult to beat, and you can't really figure out why, isn't there?
Yeah, coming into this, I thought we were going to have a whole like scissor paper rock type thing between like 4, maybe even 5 teams at some point, where like one team could beat the other. It was just going to be very matchup specific on the stylistic approaches of different opponents. And I think like an interesting thing now coming into this matchup is like SK has been the one to beat Astralis quite regularly, right? The big question is, what have Astralis prepared in their time off? What have they changed? What is their map pool going to look like? What are they going to pull out of the bag and surprise SK with? Do they even have anything to surprise SK?
They've only won one map against SK since E-League's major in January.
Yeah,
that was on Overpass.
Yeah, that's a pretty dominating score for SK here, and I think the Vito. I agree with Chad that Vito is going to be super interesting. If it wasn't SK, or if SK wasn't that good on Cobble recently, I wouldn't even, I would even float that in if I was Astralis.
Yep.
Like prepare that map secretly, specifically, right? That would be a huge curveball. I don't think that's going to happen against SK. I think the Vitos are going to be clear cut. But then when it comes to picks, that's where it gets interesting, because Astralis for a very long time, probably still the world's best overpass team, despite their shaky performance against Immortals earlier, but SK has been improving ever since they got to Europe on the map. It has been really low on their depth pool, but seems to have risen recently. For SK, it's like Cash is the obvious pick when you think about it, but Astralis hasn't played Cash in the last 3 months once on LAN, so you have no idea what Astralis is going to look like on Cash. Are you willing to go into that unknown, or do you want something where you can prepare a bit better for them?
Yeah, that's going to be the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do they go with what they like and don't worry about what Astralis might have up their sleeve, or do they do they feel it out a little bit? Do they think, well, actually, they might have spent some time on here, we might be worried about them?
Well, that's the big question, right? Do they pick the Inferno, which they've already won on, or do they go for something that is a little bit more, I guess, exotic, that we might not be expecting in this matchup? I agree with Yanko in the sense of we should see the Cobble ban coming out from Astralis, and we should see the Nuke ban 100% coming out from SK, right? That seems pretty standard. But for whatever reason, I have this feeling like Astralis are going to pick something weird, or they're going to let something through the veto and hope that the SK want to pick it to make it like a bit more of a risky kind of exchange, because they've done it against FaZe before, right? Well, or FaZe did it against them when they played Cobblestone. When was this? Was it
Sydney?
Yeah, in Sydney. And there was that like kind of gambit play there. I feel like that could happen again in this matchup, but then you have to look at the flip side of the coin, which is every time these teams play, it's ridiculously close, and the things that separate the margins between these two guys is someone stepping up and getting a huge clutch round or something along those lines. It's not fundamentally being outplayed, which I think is a big issue.
Another issue here is when you look at Astralis' potential picks, Overpass Train is up there as well. But I think everyone has learned from FaZe in the grand finals in Sydney in that best of 5. You do not want to pick Train as your first map against SK in a veto system where they get to pick the side. So you don't want to start the quarterfinal as terrorist on Train against SK. I think that's the big, deterrent for Astralis. Even though they're a very, very strong Train team, when you look at how they approach the game, how they play T-side, they're very capable of switching the pace. I mean, I will always mention the grand final at the E-League Major and how they won that game against VP on the T side. That was an amazing display of a team being able to adjust and being aggressive when it's not as easy when the pressure is high.
The last 3 Overpass matches have all gone the way of Astralis, regardless of lineup as well. So they've got to have that in the back of their mind, haven't they? Well,
that's the thing. You'd want to lean towards that, and something which I don't know if it hampers SK so much. Maybe it's a more positive for Astralis, but on Overpass specifically, Phelps is the rotator on the CT side, right? He's the youngest player in the team in terms of he's newest to this level, and being the rotator on the CT side and making gamble calls swinging between those A and B bomb sites and making sure you filter all that information is normally left up to someone more like the in-game leader who understands the big game plan on the CT sides, which when you flip it over for Astralis, Glaive is that rotator, right? He's the guy, he's the architect of what's happening. So that's not an issue for me because I don't want Fallen to be rotating between sites with the AWP. But that could be, you know, a pressure point on this map. That's something which can be exploited. If you see how Phelps, he would only have the very similar tendencies when rotating, whereas someone like Glaive will have a lot more depth in that regard. But if I was Astralis, Overpass would be my go-to because they seem to always stand up and grind that map out, even when teams come up with counter-stratting. We've seen that with FaZe before, had looked at their tendencies, worked out, you know, we'll nade it this time, we can do damage to Dupree on this part of the map, we'll come up with little pushes to isolate Zipnix in the backyard section of B, and they were still able to stand up and you know, take them down. So
I think it's very difficult to anti-strat Astralis on this map because they're so fundamentally strong, and if anything, you can see that I think it was apparent to an extent at that ECS game that they've had, that Astralis themselves are realizing that actually what's becoming a problem for them is the fact that they're so fundamentally sound that teams can predict what they're going to do. They know that Astralis is always going to make the smart play, which sounds weird, like you playing smart might be a disadvantage for you. And I think it was the Mirage game where you could see Astralis actually taking more risks and doing something a bit unexpected, and that actually did give them an edge in that game over SK. So I'm interested to see if they have made those adjustments regardless of the map. Are they going to be a bit more aggressive, maybe a bit more crazy in their game?
Yeah, Device did say that they are feeling a bit looser at this event, right? The way their approach is definitely being looser, and that shows in the stats because Dupree, he's the guy who stands up when they're feeling loose. So he's the guy who is good at this brawling style of Counter-Strike, and like I said, the stats definitely reflect that for him at this event. So if they can get into a brawl with SK, I think that SK has like players who are probably better at doing that, and Dupree would definitely need someone to come and support him in that regard. We need to see Device, you know, hitting those flashy shots like we can see coming out from Fallen. But the big thing, and this is the hardest thing. I don't know if Astralis feel this way, but I was talking to JW earlier, and he was saying that they hate playing against SK because it feels like they're playing two teams, right? They think like Fur, he's his own team, and then the other four, they're the rest of the unit. And this is something which it doesn't matter what map you're playing. That's kind of the situation, especially on that CT side where Fur is just being aggressive all over the map. You don't know where to expect him, but you know he's going to come, which is such a weird thing to go into every game because you're just waiting. You're waiting. And if he ever wants to transition away from that, he can play any style of Counter-Strike he